Hello. Welcome, everybody, to the Never Split Up podcast. My name's Nolan. That's Anthony. And today we are covering I Know What You Did Last Summer. How you doing today, Ant?
I'm doing good. How's it going over there?
Going pretty good. Gearing up for 4th of July weekend is coming up. This episode will be released right before 4th of July weekend, so we definitely wanted to cover a 90s slasher that you love that is set, of course, around 4th of July. That's pretty much the whole premise of the movie. That the plot and the setting is important to this movie. I feel like it gives it its heart in a way. So yeah, we wanted to cover this movie before 4th of July. And yeah, this is episode 29. So we're almost at 30 episodes. So, you know, pat ourselves on the back there. We're going to get a pretty big milestone there. So I'm excited for that. We have a good episode next week as well, but I'll save that for the end of the episode. I think we previewed that last week anyway. So if you listened to our last episode, thanks to everyone who listened to that. It was our franchise rankings. That was a big episode. That was a couple weeks ago. We took a week off. I got married, and now we're back for the summertime. And I Know What You Did Last Summer. Is there any announcements or anything? Do you want to announce who won? You ran a poll for the franchise episode. Is that correct? Do you want to announce that?
Sure did. Yeah, so everyone first say congratulations to Nolan because he's now a married man.
Thank you.
Crazy.
Thank you.
But yeah, we did our franchise episode, was our last one a couple weeks ago. So I ran a poll. I hope you guys watch or listen to that episode so you can hear all of our top 10 entries. But Nolan's number one was Halloween and my number one was Scream. So I ran a poll, which franchise do you prefer out of those two? And we got a good, decent voting, but Scream came out on top and won that poll across Twitter and Instagram. So thanks for voting, guys. We've been seeing some pretty decent numbers, so it's cool to see everyone interact. And I had a couple comments saying, this is cruel that you're making us choose between these two franchises. But yeah, it is cruel, but it's the name of the game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those are two huge franchises. Thanks for everyone for voting. And again, thanks for everyone for tuning in and listening to our last episode. We got some pretty good numbers on that. That was one of our better ranking episodes in terms of listeners. So thanks to everyone. And if you didn't check it out, definitely go check it out. I think we had two pretty unique lists. We had some crossover, but even the crossovers were in like different spots, our top 10. So definitely check that out. But for now, we're excited. I'm excited to get back to some movie reviews because we haven't done that in a few weeks. And this is a biggie. This is a biggie for you, especially, Ant. So do you want to kick us off and talk about this movie a little? Talk about the director, the awesome 90s cast?
Oh, phew. Yes, I do. So let me just give you the synopsis before we get into it. Everything very basic. 4 young friends bound by a tragic accident are reunited when they find themselves being stalked by a hook-wielding maniac in their small seaside town. I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's directed by Jim Gillespie, and it's written by, surprise, surprise, Kevin Williamson, my guy, who wrote the original Scream.
Yeah.
And it stars the lovely Jennifer Love Hewitt, one of the 90s It girls, along with Neve Campbell, the icon Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze Jr., and Ryan Felipe. So that is our main core 4 before there was a core 4.
Oh, God. They are awesome.
They are awesome. I mean, you can't get better than that main cast. But we also have some supporting characters. We have the late Anne Heche. She had a good little extended cameo scene. She played Missy. We have Muse Watson, who plays our villain in the movie. And we have Bridget Wilson. I don't know if you know, she's Helen's sister in the movie. She was in the House on Haunted Hill remake from the late 90s. And she was in a bunch of like late 90s and early 2000s like rom-coms and movies.
Yep.
We have Johnny Galecki. I knew him before this movie from Christmas Vacation, but you guys probably know him from Big Bang Theory. And that's our kind of like list. There's a little tiny characters after that, but that's the gist of the supporting / main characters. Stacked, fucking stacked, so good. And this came out in 1997, so so Scream came out in 1996, brought back the horror genre, the slasher genre, and then after Scream, there was a bunch of, I want to say, imitators. and this is the most successful out of that bunch. But interestingly enough, Kevin Williamson wrote this one before Scream.
Hmm.
So this came out after Scream, but he wrote it before, and he actually intended on having this movie have more self-referential stuff, but he did that with Scream. So he kind of like switched it up and had it go pretty like straightforward and draw more inspirations from the book, because it is based on a book, but the book's not a slasher, so he just mixed the book with slasher. So it's interesting how it came together. Some people always say like, yeah, it's after Scream, it imitated Scream, but it was written before it. But yeah, it was a big success. It spawned off a sequel, so we'll cover the sequel one day. But yeah, this is a big late '90s movie. Huge,
Yeah.
huge.
No, it makes sense that it was successful. I never really thought about it in terms of when it was released around Scream. So it was the year after Scream. So, and obviously
Yes.
Scream was a huge hit. So I can only imagine the anticipation for another, slasher written by the same guy. So it makes sense that it was a hit in the box office. And yeah, like you said, there was a sequel that spawned of it. And yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with this cast, especially for the 90s. It was going to be a hit no matter what. Um, you know, you had, like you said, you had the It Girl, you had Freddie Prinze Jr. I love Jennifer Love Hewitt. She's awesome. She's a great final girl. Not to spoil it before we get into spoilers, but she's a pretty good final girl. Was she on your list? I don't remember if
I was
she
gonna
was on your
say,
top
shout
10.
out to that episode.
Yeah.
Check out our Final Girls episode, because she was actually my number 5. I have a soft spot for Julie James. I know a lot of people hate her, but I will defend her.
And that's going to be a theme, I feel like, in this episode, your soft spot for this movie overall. I feel like every time we do ranking episodes and you can put this movie in there, you do. Like we've seen this movie quite a bit on the podcast, and we haven't even covered it yet. So
exactly, yeah. So it popped up on our villains. It was my shock number 10.
Yep.
Villain pick. So from the classic villains. So yeah, it has now that I think about it, it has appeared quite a bit, and we haven't even covered it yet. So I'm excited to get into it. Want to do our overall thoughts before we get into the spoil? I'm assuming everyone listening or watching has seen this movie. I mean, if you haven't, then just what are you doing with your life? But yeah, let's give our overall thoughts and then get into it, because I don't know where you're coming at for this one, really.
For sure, I want to do this segment overall thoughts, and also I want to start doing, just like I think we did this with Sleepaway Camp, whether or not we recommend the movie. So people can kind of, so this helps out people that don't haven't seen the movie yet, so they can watch this segment. And so far we've mainly covered movies that we overall like, but I'm sure we're gonna start getting into movies that are just bad. I want to start covering some like bad horror movies.
We should, so people just don't think we. Yeah. I think the lowest one. I think the lowest movie I've ranked so far, or rated so far, and I've still enjoyed it, is High Tension and then Sleepaway Camp. Even, but I still love Sleepaway Camp, and I love High Tension until I don't. So I mean, those are the lowest scores so far.
Yeah, I mean, have we given any 5s in the 5 ranges?
No,
or has
I have
6s? Not. I don't think
6s. High 6s was my lowest rating.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I definitely want to mix it up and do some movies that are like not so high up. So I want to start giving like recommendations before we get into the reviews. So I think that's a good idea. But yeah, my overall thoughts. I like this movie a lot. It's not an all-timer for me, like people who have listened know it is for you. I love it mostly for the cast. That's why I rewatch it. It just is a feel-good movie for me, because it brings me back to a kid, watching all of these actors, Freddie Prinze Jr., Sarah Michelle Gellar, Jennifer Love Hewitt, especially those big 3. It's just a feel-good movie for me. I'm surprised. Yeah, I know. It's a slasher. It's a feel-good movie. I know. I'm surprised. I actually had to look this up when I was rewatching it. I never knew that this was rated R, believe it or not, because this is a pretty tame rated R.
Oh, really? There's one or two pretty gnarly.
Yeah, there is. They show a couple some gory scenes, but overall, I mean, there isn't like
tension.
there isn't like a ton of swearing. There's no nudity or anything like that. So this is kind of borderline like PG-13/R. I had to look it up.
Swearing's all from Barry. It's all from Barry.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, now that I think about it, yeah, for sure. But getting back to the movie, yeah, this is a feel good movie for me because, like I said, I love watching those actors. Their chemistry on screen is great, and I have some thoughts when we get into the actual review about how they treat Helen and Ray and Julie. I don't want to spoil anything yet, but what happens to those characters, and even Barry, um, it kind of helps determine how I feel about the sequel as well. But we're just talking about the first movie. I do like this a lot. I know you're a big fan, and listeners know that you're a big fan of the Fisherman. He's awesome. His hook hand is pretty unique. I love how it's just so tied to the setting of the movie because they're in like a fishing town.
Right.
Do we know it's the East Coast? Is it it's relatively
Southport.
close to New
It's like North
York?
Carolina or something. I think it's North
Okay.
Carolina, like Southport, North Carolina.
Oh, it
Yeah.
is. Okay, I thought it was like
Yeah.
further north than that. But
No.
okay, so North Carolina. So it's East Coast, like fishermen's
Yeah.
villages slash towns. So I love how that's all incorporated, and that plays a big role into the movie because you know they're trying to figure out who this person is, but everyone is a fisherman, so it's kind of hard. But
Exactly.
yeah, I recommend this movie. It's like you said, it's funny. I didn't know that about Kevin Williamson. How he wanted to bring. You said he wanted to bring the meta into this movie before he did with
Yeah.
Scream, but he decided to play it straightforward. This movie is very straightforward. There really is no like levity to it at all. So it takes itself pretty seriously. I would say very seriously, but I think it works. Not everybody likes slashers that don't that take themselves too seriously, but I think the direction and the acting makes it work. So definitely check it out if you like slashers. I would say it's a recommendation for me. Yeah, for sure. How about you, Ant?
Okay. Yeah, it's more than a recommendation for me. It's a must watch. So put that at the top of your summer list, people. We also talked about it on our summer episode. Damn, I really have talked about this movie a
Yes,
bit,
yeah.
huh? So yeah, I mean, again, you guys can call me biased, but we all know by now that I'm a 90s kid, and this is another movie that I grew up with. Like I said in our Scream, we did the original Scream that I kept going to rent Halloween, and my mom was like, "Oh, we got to check out something else because the guy keeps saying we keep renting Halloween, so let's check out this new movie Scream." Then I fell in love with Scream, and I kept wanting to get Scream. The mom's like, "Well, this new one just came out. I know you do that summer." I'm like, "No, I just want to watch like Sydney and Ghostface. Like, that's all I wanted." And then she's like, "We're renting this," and then we rented it. I'm like, "Oh my god, I fell in love with this movie. It's so good because it's so has the Scream vibes and it has the classic slasher vibes also." So to me, it's the perfect blend of those both, like 90s slasher, Scream mixed with the more classic, like villain looking, like Michael Myers esque villain look. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So I fell in love with this movie. The cast is all timer for me. I mean, again, I'm a 90s kid, so I know these four actors. I'm obsessed with them. Specifically Jennifer Love Hewitt and my girl Sarah Michelle Gellar, my Scream Queen. She had a year in 1997. She had Buffy, Scream 2, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Damn, what a horror icon. I kind of, when I take a step back, I compare her to what Jenna Ortega is doing today in the horror genre, what Sarah Michelle Gellar did in the late 90s and early 2000s. She was that it girl, and now Jenna Ortega is kind of like the it girl in Hollywood. So I kind of see a nice comparison between them two. But anyway, yeah, I think that what you said about the characters, I think that they do something very bad in this movie, but the movie works so well and it's so well written and it takes its time, unlike some movies today that's just boom, 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 that by the time the killing and the taunting starts happening, I should be like, oh, I don't care if these people died, but I'm like, no, I don't want them to die, even Barry. I'm like, I am rooting for all of them. And that's a testament to the acting and the script. And it's just so well paced. I think this when I rewatched, I didn't realize how good the score was because I usually just focus on the performances and where the story is going, but the
Hmm.
score
Yeah.
helps the tension so much. It's so well done. I mean, it has everything I want. Again, movies today, they think all we want is to get straight to the kill. But what you said is it's not very gruesome, but its moments of violence are so effective because of the build up. And I don't think movies do chase scenes like I Know What You Did Last Summer did in 1997 between the set pieces and the chase scenes. It has one of my, it might have my favorite chase scene of all time. Don't quote me, but it's in my top 3, hands down, chase scenes of all time. And movies don't do that anymore. Even slashers, they just are like, all right, let's get to the kill. I like my tension and build up, and this movie has no shortage of that. Yeah, so it's just very special to me. I don't want to blab too much about all of it because I want to get into the specifics of it when we get into it. But like you said, the killer was on my icon list. I think the look is just, I don't know, it just does something for me. It's really creepy when you like, it's all the way up, so it's kind of covering face, but you just see it a little bit. It's very mysterious. They did it very well, and the way it was shot too, I think helped it out a lot. I love the setting. I wanted to move to Southport after I saw this movie and live in this little fishing town. I don't know. There's something about it that like has a charm, like you said earlier too. It's just very well filmed too, I think. Yeah, guys, I'm in love with this movie. I know I say it for because we've been covering a few of my all timers lately, but this is an all timer for me. It's one of my most rewatched movies of all time, and I watch it every 4th of July back to back with the sequel. If I miss it, well, I don't miss it because then that would ruin my whole day. So I watch it every year, and I'm obsessed with it so much.
There you go. You heard it. We both recommend this movie. Anthony is must-watch territory. I'm not quite must-watch, but if you're a slasher fan, you've seen this movie already. I mean, this is pretty much, at the top of slashers, especially for that
Right.
era. But yeah, I wanted to bring up a comment that you made before we really dive into the movie. Can you expand upon what you mean by it has Scream elements to it? Are you talking about like the whodunit aspect, or what do you mean by that?
Just the whodunit aspect and how it's very like it's taking the 90s aesthetic and like up a notch and like even like more with the promotion too. Like this movie's poster literally copied the Scream poster with the that's what started the floating heads. It literally said on every poster from the creator of Scream, even though this was written before Scream and came out after. They just really, I think they probably, it's just the vibe. I mean, we have Julie's literally a wannabe Sydney, even though she's never going to be a Sydney until she gets some Sydney vibes in the sequel. But everything they did with it, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Helen's the blonde best friend. It's just very Ray is the mysterious boyfriend. Is he the killer or not? You know what I mean? It's very,
Yeah.
very, very Scream. It's just not Scream, really meta Scream. But there's a
Yeah.
couple lines in here. They mentioned Jodie Foster and sound so like you can tell Kevin Williamson couldn't help to be a little meta, but it's not on the territory of Scream. And of course, it's not as smart and it's not as brilliant as Scream. And I will admit that because I mean, you guys know how I feel about Scream, but I think it's the best imitator of Scream, of the late 90s and early 2000s. So that's all. It's just very similar vibes to Scream.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I thought so. I just wanted to make sure to, have you expand upon that. That makes sense a lot. Because I never really think about it in that regard, but now that we're talking about it, I could see why you would say that for sure. Because it does take itself, it's way more straightforward. It takes itself way more seriously, but you still have those elements.
Right.
You could tell it was written by the same guy. So,
oh yeah.
All right, awesome. So yeah, let's get into the review. Spoilers ahead. We'll go ahead and do you want to kick us off with the opening act, the opening scene? How did you feel about
for sure.
the whole last summer act?
First of all, can I just say that can we please do opening credits like we did in the fucking late 90s? I just love the intro with like the punk rock song. I'm such a sucker for like punk rock intro with the title card over the water and the little bridge that wraps around. Oh, it's so good. But I think it starts off on a cool eerie note. You have a guy just sitting like off a cliff pretty much, He's just sitting there and we don't know what's going on. He hears something, looks back, and then it just you see fireworks, and then it cuts to our main cast. I just love how I don't know. It's just something about it that's so and it's almost just has you curious right away. Like, all right, who is this? What's going on? We don't even think about him again until later. But then we go, if you take a step back, you're like, oh my god, he was important to the plot. It's just very smart how they start it, and then we get kicked off with their typical opening of graduated high school kids partying and celebrating. It's the Croker pageant. And our girl Helen is in the running. for the Croaker Queen. And if you see that lineup, there's no doubt about it who's winning that pageant. It's our girl Helen. Helen Shivers. Sarah Michelle Gellar killed it. Um, I crack up every time I see Croaker Queen. I don't know, but yeah. So it's Helen, and then Julie is Helen's best friend, and then Barry is Helen's boyfriend, and Ray is Julie's boyfriend. They're sitting like up in the, I guess, the high level auditorium, just watching her, and that's how we're introduced to our core four for now. And yeah, I think they're a fun group of. Barry's a little cocky, but I don't hate him right away. But it's a cool crew of characters. That's how we're introduced to them. Helen obviously wins, and then they're having a little party, and we get introduced to Helen's sister Elsa, who is a super bitch. She's not even congratulatory to her sister or anything. She's like, "Oh, blah blah blah," calling her pathetic pretty much right away. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with this girl? Jealous. She's jealous. But yeah, I think it's a good little introduction to our characters. I like that we're not introduced to them in high school. We're introduced after they graduated, so it's not the typical, high school setup, blah 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 blah. What about you?
I really enjoy this opening too. Because this movie is straightforward, I don't really want to get into the weeds of like going scene by scene. I really just want to talk about how I feel about like, the overall, acts and stuff. So my only comments would be I love the pacing of this movie. You mentioned it in your overall thoughts. I think that's a strong point of this movie. I love how it takes its time with this whole opening scene. I don't know if you'd call it really an act. I guess it kind of is an act because that's how drawn out it is. But it doesn't feel boring. I mean, they're introducing you to the characters. They're introducing you to the town. It's 4th of July. They have the pageant. Like, the town is alive. Everything is kind of, alive. Like, it's not a movie set. You really get, like, you're part of the town. And they're partying. You get introduced to, what's his name? Max for the first time at the party. Oh, he's like the dweeb. He's
fuck
like
him too.
Yeah. Fuck him.
He's so
really.
rude to Ray. So rude to Ray.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't know why Ray didn't punch him right away. Like, that's my girlfriend, bro. What the fuck you being a creep?
Yeah.
I know they were friends, but like, stop.
Yeah, if you're watching this for the first time, this movie, I mean, red flags galore with Max for sure. I mean, you're like, all right,
self-esteem issues.
Galore. Yeah, but I do love this opening because it does take its time, and I guess kudos to the director and the actors because you really like care about these people almost instantly. Like you're like in their lives even before the accident and stuff. You really you're really introduced to them quite well. And then we get to the road scene. They're going they're even, you have the quick beach scene, so that's cool.
Well, I was gonna say I want to bring that up.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I love what you said though. I just want to comment that you said how you just feel like the energy of the town. And you can tell that's not on a set. They didn't film it on a set. They actually filmed it in North Carolina, so that helped out. But I think the way, like you said, the shots and the way everything just came together, it's just so, like I said, I wanted to go there right away. So I really like that you brought that up. But yeah, I like when after that little party, they have a Max and Ray and Barry. Barry's a little dick. Barry is a dick to Max, so they leave off on a bad note. Barry's a little drunk. He's like, take a hike. But they go to the beach. Ray drives Barry's BMW because Barry's drunk, but they get to the beach, and I love how, again, talk about, like you said, setting the mood. They're telling, like, almost campfire stories and urban legends. So I love how each different of the four characters, they're like, oh, no, this is how the story goes. And the ones, no, this is how the story goes. They all have a different interpretation, which is true of urban legends. So, and then of course, we know our final girl when the one she's like, no, it's a guy with the hook. You're like, okay, we know our lead protagonist when she's the one who says it's the one with the hook. But I don't know how you feel about that even. I just love how, again, they just ease into it. But it's just, I just like how we get that little story time and like small moments like that. I'm just like, ooh, like I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get into it. And this is before anything happens. We don't have a scream like opening scene right away. It just kind of just builds up to the accident. I really like that it takes its time like that, and we're getting to know our characters a bit before the mayhem happens.
Yeah, and again, this may be a small detail for someone watching, but now that I've seen this a few times, I love this beach scene because again, another reason why you really feel the town is alive is because they're all graduating high school. They went to the same high school. This town has this urban legend, but everyone has a different version of the legend, and it's so realistic because every town had those. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so
We all
yeah,
talked about it. We did it all the time. Yeah.
it's small things like that that really even if you don't pick up on it, I feel like it subconsciously draws you in to these characters in this town. And yeah, for sure. What you said about what were you just talking about after they were talking about the beach scene? I'm blanking. I had another point to make, but now I'm blanking.
Can I just give a shout out to Ray when they like kind of like go off and do their coupley things, and he scares Julie and he goes, "I'm gonna hook you." That's something I would do 100%. And he pops out and chases her. I love that. I crack up every time. He's such addicted for doing that to her, but I love it.
Yeah. I don't remember my train of thought. Sorry about that. So let's just keep going. Maybe I'll think about it later. But I had.
It was pretty much. We were talking about like the grand. Maybe I was mentioning how the lead up to the accident with like it's not an opening like scream and blah blah blah.
Yes, thank you for that. I like that. I like how it doesn't have an opening kill like Scream does because again, they're setting up the characters, and these characters you can tell they're the popular kids. They're getting everywhere in life that they want to get to. They're all going to college. They're high school sweethearts. In their minds, you know, they're going to stay together forever. You know, college is not going to, you know, separate them. Right. So I like how it kind of introduces you to the idealistic world of these four characters, and it doesn't introduce us with a kill right away. It leaves us with a happy note until we get to the accident. So I think that was intentional to kind of get us in a good 100%. Mood. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. That was the right way to go.
It's funny because we found out there technically was an opening kill, but we just didn't know that it was the first person we saw in the movie. It's so smart, and I think another reason why the writer and the director wanted to take its time before the accident is because what our main characters who we're following throughout the entire movie do after the accident, it's not nice, and so they wanted to have us at least have some connection to them because they don't make good decisions right away. So I think that has a lot to do with it because if it started just with the accident, like, fuck these guys, who cares? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So I think it was necessary for them to have the build up.
For sure, because when we get to the big decision and the crisis mode that they're in, you're like, you know, screaming at the TV, you know, because you care about these characters. Like, you know, you're trying to help them. You feel like you're part of this group. And I totally agree. I think taking its time was definitely the right move. And like I said, the pacing is one of the strong aspects of this movie. Right. So I agree. So let's get to that scene then.
Let's get to the accident. So after they had their little, like, you know, kissy lovemaking moments on the beach, you know, all hell's about to break loose. Again, Barry's drunk. It's his car, but, you know, Ray and Julie and Helen are like, you're not driving. Helen's like, you know, sit in the back of me. I'll let you do things to me. I'm like, Barry, go in the back with Helen, please. Come on, it's Sarah Michelle Gellar. But anyway, they get in the car and, you know, they're all having a good time. And then Barry, my Barry, he just has to be the obnoxious jock and, you know, crank the music up and then go through the sunroof while they're driving. You know, typical, you know, high school jock, going through the sunroof, you know, partying up, drinking liquor. And then he drops the fucking booze on Ray, who's driving. You know, so obviously Ray gets preoccupied with that. And then we just hear Barry saying, look up, look out. They look up and something hits the windshield. And, you know, they do a little 360 in the car and it's an accident. So we know what's happening and what hit the windshield. But they're like, first of all, hey, how they say maybe it was just a dog. I'm like, maybe it was just a dog. I'd rather be a person. Fuck that. They're like, no, maybe it's a deer then. But then where's the body? I'm like, oh my God, these idiots. So they get out of the car and Julie eventually finds a bloody boot. So, you know, it's not looking too good. And then they go a little bit further and they see a body. So they hit somebody, literally. But they assume that he's dead. They don't see him moving or anything. So this is they fucking literally killed somebody. It was mostly Barry's fault because he was acting like an asshole. But they're in this predicament, and Julie's like, "Oh my god, we got to call the cops, call the cops." And Barry's like, "No, he's already dead. What's good that's gonna do? Ruin our lives for this because he spilt the liquor. There's liquor all over the car, and they're like, the cops are never gonna believe that Barry wasn't driving. All this shit, they're fucked. They're fucked if they call the cops. It's manslaughter. That's what Ray says. So Barry has a very very out of left field idea to, let's just cover it up. Let's just leave. And then Julie's like, "You asshole, there's blood on your car." And he's like, "All right, let's get rid of the body." So Julie is very adamant about calling the cops. She's wants to do what's right. And Helen's not on Barry's level, but she's kind of like, pretty much, "Julie, just pretend we're never here." She's not like an asshole like Barry in the scene, but she's also like, "I don't want to get caught for this shit." And Ray is going back and forth, and then he comes to the realization, he's like, "I don't have money like your family. Like, I'm like a working man, I'm gonna be a fisherman. I'm not at the light level that you guys are with your family." He's like, "This will ruin my life, literally. I won't be able to work. I don't have like family money." So it's kind of 3v1, although Ray's very sensitive about it because that's how he is throughout the whole movie. He doesn't really take sides. But before they can make their final decision, good old Max comes rolling around. So it's a mess right away. They should have realized that you're gonna get caught sooner or later. So Max
Mhm.
rolls up. Um, Barry and Helen hide the body, and they pretend that Barry's thrown up because he got drunk. But it's so stupid because Max can see the car. Julie's like, "Yeah, we're just trying to keep the car looking nice and new." He's like, "Doesn't look that new." Again, Max is such a dick. But so Ray comes up to the car. I just want to highlight this scene about how much I hate Max. Um, he's so rude to Ray. He's like, "You almost got that rich boy act down, Ray." I'm like, what the fuck is this guy's problem with Ray? I know he likes Julie, but if I were Ray, I'd be like, you're gonna be the next one who gets hit and run. But so anyway, Max pretty much says bye to Julie and then just leaves. So they do decide to dump the body. And this is, again, such an iconic scene. They go down to the dock. Helen's in her crown still because she won the Croaker Queen. But Julie's like, "Should we check the ID? I want to know who it is." And I agree with Helen, and she's like, "I don't want to know who it is." I'd be like, "I don't want to know who it is either, who I just fucking killed." But Barry's like, "Just pretend it's some guy with a hook for a hand." I'm like, "Oh, just you wait. Just you wait. You're not going to be pretending." So they go to get Helen's. Ray doesn't want to help because he can't do it anymore. He's like, "Oh, I don't think I can do it." So Helen mans up and helps Barry, start to push the body off. But we get a nice little jump scare, and the guy grabs her crown before he gets pushed in. And Barry has to go jump in the water and get her crown back. And we get a really good jump scare. The guy's eyes kind of open before he quote unquote dies. I love that scene. I jumped the first time I saw that scene. So that's what our crew decides to do. They literally kill somebody and then dump a body. So again, the filmmakers are asking a lot of the audience to want to follow and root for these characters. But in my opinion, they actually pull it off somehow the rest of the movie. But yeah, so that's the whole accident. It's very well done, very well choreographed, very well paced. I love that Barry, the scene when they're like, "Take it to your grave, you want to answer." Barry literally like starts choking Julie to like make her say like, "Okay, I'll take it to the grave." And fucking Ray is just standing there. He's like, "Stop it, man." I'm like, "Yo, that's your girlfriend." But anyway, so yeah, so that's what they do. Again, Julie's the one who's very adamant, like, this is wrong. And the other two really don't feel good about it, but they go along with it with Barry because it's like, what else are we gonna do? So yeah, that's the accident. I think it's very well done. A lot of moral ambiguity in it. I like it.
I feel a little differently overall. First, I hate Barry. I think he's the biggest asshole in the movie.
Well, he
You
is
say
until yeah, he
Max,
is.
you say Max is, but
Oh yeah, I think Max
I
is.
don't
Yeah.
hate Max as much just because I hate Barry so much. So when Max is evil or is mean to Barry, I don't really like. I kind of agree with Max, even though Max is a douchebag too for no reason.
Yeah,
I
he's so
just
mean to Ray.
don't like Barry. So yeah, he is. I know. I really try to put myself in their shoes, and I really just can't relate at all to this situation. I don't know about you, but me personally, I would never be able to live with myself, especially if I was Ray driving the car, even though it really was
Right.
Barry's fault because he's the one who spilled the liquor, but Ray was the one who hit him. I I try to put myself in their shoes. You know, a lot of them, except for Ray, are like, I guess, upper class. Especially Barry is upper class.
Oh, Barry is
Um,
like rich, typical rich dude.
yeah, so it's kind of like, wouldn't wouldn't they just like go to their family and go to the cops and they could probably get off? But they're drunk. I mean, Barry's drunk, so I get it. I really don't have much sympathy for them until we get the flash
Right.
forward. I think it's a credit to the actors that you begin to feel bad for them after the fact. I don't feel bad for them in the moment
No.
at all, because again, I can't relate. I would definitely report it even if I had to
So
do
you're
some
Team
jail time.
Julie in this.
I'm Team Julie for sure. But I think they did a good job. Like, to your point, when we go through this movie, the actors are so good, and the directing and the writing is so good at showing you how their lives are just a mess now because of this accident. And Helen never made it in New York, and Ray is now
sad,
a fisherman. They're all broken up with each other, so you start to feel bad for each other, for them. I mean. And I think that helps with the sympathy as you go on with the movie.
Man.
Because I think
Agreed.
I think they all kind of regret not doing what they're doing. They're just coping with it differently. Like,
Yes.
Barry just goes all in with it and says, he's in denial about it. Julie is, of course, our final girl, so she's going to be the most sensible one throughout. Helen has just kind of like internalized it and like won't
Right.
I don't know, it's cool how they all deal with it differently. I think that's pretty realistic.
It's realistic.
So that helps with the audience sympathize with the characters again. But for this scene, I can't relate. I don't know.
Well, I think that's the director. I think that's the intention, because I don't feel bad for them. I'm like, what are you doing, you idiots? Call the fucking cops. But I think that's intentional. I think that's what makes the filmmakers have to work so hard to get us back on their side before the climax, because like you said, there's a gap after this scene. We get a year gap, which again was very smart for them to do.
Yeah,
because we get introduced to all these four people in very different states from then where they were. Again, Helen, she was like, oh, hyped and prepped and ready to go to New York and be an actress, and now she's like she's just so shattered, and not like she's not the same person. She's working at the department store her family owns, and she's just defeated. Julie looks like she's friggin' she looks like a ghost. She looks like she doesn't eat or do anything. She's like failing classes. She's like barely talking. Ray's doing his fisherman thing, and then Barry, I like what you said, because people don't realize that, like, he's an asshole, but you can tell behind it all it's a facade, because he's feeling about it too. He knows what he did was wrong. It's just he puts it all into like, no, what we did was right. He's like forcing himself to believe what he did was right.
Yeah, he's
so
trying to be like the alpha
yeah,
leader of the group,
exactly.
and trying to just like be the tough guy. Like, we
have to stick together and stick with this lie. Like, no going back. Mm-hmm. But I think it's smart that they did it like that, because I feel like in real life everyone would react to that, what they did different. But yeah, I do think that the initial accident scene, nobody's meant to feel bad for the decision they feel bad for them. Sympathize with them for the decision they made.
For sure, especially because it was an accident.
Almost killed. Right, it was literally an accident.
It was an accident.
Could have been prevented though. So they should have. They're idiots.
But even if they get charged with DUI or what, I mean, it's like
it would be manslaughter.
Own up to it, and manslaughter. Yeah, well, it turns out he wasn't dead, so they didn't even really check the guy.
He wasn't a great person
in the road. Yeah, they would have been doing a service for sure.
Exactly,
heroes. Yeah, which is kind of ironic when you think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll just get back. Let's just fly through it. They cut back a year later. Like I said, we pretty much just described how we're introduced to them again. But what kicks off the whole plot of the title of the movie, I Know You Did Last Summer, is Julie when she gets home to her mom's. I love her mom's like, are you on drugs? She's like, no, I've just been going through it.
Everyone is so mean to Julie when she gets back. I think it's Barry says, like, you look like shit.
No, he says it to both. He says it to both of them.
Both
and
of
Helen
them,
doesn't even look that bad.
Yeah, I know.
She's like, you guys look like you got run over twice or something.
Yeah, it's like, whoa. Oh, yeah, they don't even.
I love how Helen's just like, you're a prick. I'm like, yes, you are, Barry. But Julie, her mom tells her, like, you got something in the mail. You got a letter. So she opens it and it says, "Dum dum dum. I know what you did last summer." So again, that's what the whole plot of the movie is. So she's like, "Holy shit! I knew I was right. We're bound to get caught. Someone saw us." So she I love how the first person she goes to, I know it's a little, and I'm like dwelling on it too much, but I love how she doesn't go running to Ray. She goes running for Helen. I love that because in the beginning of the movie, we see that they have such a strong bond and friendship.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
actually sad at a later point in the movie. I want to like highlight it when we get to it, but there's a scene between Helen and Julie in the car, and it just makes me really sad
Hmm.
to see how their friendship changed. But
Yeah.
anyway, I like how she goes looking for Helen first. I don't know. I love how that played out. It's not the typical "let me go run to my ex-boyfriend." You know what I mean?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's just she ends up going to the store where that Helen's family owns, and it's her asshole sister. She's like, "Can you give me Helen's New York number?" She's like, "If you want her, look 10 feet to your left." And it's such a bitch. But yeah. So that's how they get reintroduced, and they go to Barry, and they show Barry the note, and then Barry's like, "Oh, it was Mac. It must have been Mac." He's like,
Well,
yeah,
at first he's in denial. He's like,
yep,
that can mean anything. We did a lot last
exactly.
summer. He's like, yeah, the only
Julie's
murder
like,
that
only
comes to
one
mind is
murder.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, "You shut the hell up."
I know.
His mom's like right there on the phone
With an open door, yeah, on the phone. Doesn't hear any of it.
I
It's so
love that
funny.
scene when she's like, "Yeah, well, only one murder comes to mind." I'm like, "Oh shit."
But I'm glad you brought that up with Julie and Helen, how she goes to Helen first, because that is one of the things I love about this movie, their relationship, and
Mhm.
it's one of the reasons why I think the sequel falls flat for me because it doesn't have Helen. And I
A
think
lot of
this
people
is
feel that way. A lot of
yeah.
people feel that
I
way.
am torn on it. I am torn. We'll get to it when we get to it because
Yep.
it's coming up at the end of the movie. But I think it was. I'm not a fan of it, but it might have helped make the movie more of a cult classic. Definitely the chase scene for sure. The chase scene is iconic, but yeah, I don't know if it was the right decision or not. I'm torn on it because it's one of those things, and I think we talked about this in we kind of talked
Final
about this in
girls.
our
Yeah.
My Bloody Valentine episode.
Okay.
Actually, how do you weigh the individual movie with a potential franchise? And I think
Yep.
they went the route of just making a good movie as opposed to thinking about future sequels, which I
Right.
think is really generally the case you should do because you can't have a sequel unless the first movie's good. So you want to make the first movie as good
Right.
as possible. But I think that's one of those instances where maybe looking back, I don't know if it was the right decision, but because they did that, maybe it's more of a solid movie. The first entry, I don't know. How do you feel? I don't know if you want to get into it too much now, but
I know we're gonna get in. Well, let's
um,
just rip the band-aid off a little bit. We'll get to the actual scene because I have so much to say about that when we get to it. But I just want to address it now. I think, but you're not alone because a lot of people were like, a lot of people even say they prefer Helen be the final girl over Julie. I think that it's plain from the
no,
beginning who
yes,
the moral character is Julie.
yeah,
She's the moral character.
oh yeah,
You don't have Helen saying, pretend we weren't here. You know that she's not the final girl of this franchise. It's not
yeah.
of
I think
these
that's
two
just
movies.
people's bias towards Sarah Michelle
Yes,
Gellar.
and
So I think
and
that's
you know
why,
what?
yeah,
I just want to say, I think a lot of it has to do with how damn good Sarah Michelle Gellar portrays Helen, because you are
hmm
so sympathetic for her when
yeah,
you hit a year later. I mean, her dad doesn't even say hi to her when she walks in the house. Her ex
yeah,
boyfriend's a douche. She's going through it, and she just wants to help Julie. And there's a scene where Julie is not reciprocating it. And again, people deal with trauma and shit in different ways, so I don't blame Julie, and that's why a lot of people hate Julie. I think that what they did, how Helen's character ended in this movie, was ballsy, and it was a gut punch because when you watch, you're like, oh, they're gonna be like the two final girls, and they're gonna make it. I think what happened was they were like, we have our final girl. If we have a sequel, we have her.
yeah,
But Helen is such a fan favorite.
hmm
It would have been badass to see Helen and Julie in the sequel kicking ass together.
yeah,
But I also think what makes this chase scene so awesome and ends up being so devastating is that she doesn't make it. So it's a catch 20. It's a catch
hmm
2020. It works awesome. But of course, every time I've seen this movie endless times, and I'm screaming, I'm like, "Go! Don't die! Run! Run! Make it!
yeah,
Make it!" And I know. Every time I think something's gonna happen, it's gonna change the outcome. But obviously, I know what happens. I'm just like, "Please don't die!" and she dies. So I think that's what makes the ending of that sequence so special. But I also wish she was in the sequel. So I understand both. I can't blame anyone for saying,
Okay.
oh man, the sequel sucks without Helen, because I love the sequel, but I do wish she was in it.
Hmm.
But I give everyone kudos, Sarah Michelle Gellar and the whole crew, for committing to, you know, her being killed off in the movie.
Hmm.
I thought it
Okay,
was the
cool.
right decision. Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of feel the same way then.
Yeah.
I'll always be torn on that because
Yeah.
I do love
And
their
you're meant to be.
relationship.
You're meant to
Yeah.
be torn on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they go to Ray, and then they go to, oh no, they go to Barry. Then they all go to confront Max because Barry's convinced that Max is behind it. And then Joe's like, "Oh, you think?" He's like, "Yeah." So he just like says that's the decision, and that's what we're gonna go with. And it would make sense because Max was there that night, so that's obviously why he's onto that. So he goes to scare the shit out of Max, who's also, I guess, a fisherman. I love how he's like, "Max, let's talk," and then he takes the hook. He takes a hook and he like threatens him with the hook. And he cuts him. Um, I love how Max, he waits till he leaves and he's just like, "Don't you test me, motherfucker." But he says it
Yeah.
after he leaves.
Yeah.
So then they run into Ray. Ray gets the whole update, and they all go their separate ways. And Julie and Ray have their little moment, and we find out that they're not on good terms. Julie, and rightfully so, Julie holds a grudge against him because he didn't have her back. She's pretty much just like, I don't want to know you, blah blah blah. So we get that sentimental scene, and then we go back to Max, and we get our first, our first technically on-screen kill, which is so, I love this kill so much. Max thinks it's Barry coming back, and he notices the hook is not in the same place. And I love how it's just steamy because it's in like the fish, whatever, warehouse, whatever you want to call it. And the fisherman just comes up and gets him in the friggin', chin. The hook goes through his mouth. He yanks him across the table. The blood. I don't know. I love that kill so much. It's a good like appetizer for what's to come.
Yeah, and he's the main suspect, so
Right.
it kind of just eliminates him right away. So now it's kind of wide open. You don't really, um, you know, you don't really know what's going on because he's eliminated right away. I like how they did that so quickly after Barry confronts him. They just kind of leave no doubt. Like, no, it's definitely not him. Yeah.
They're like, "Barry, you're fucking dumb. You're wrong. It's not Max."
Yeah.
So then we get another cool set piece. Again, there's nobody does set pieces like the late '90s. Barry, he's going in the same BMW that they friggin' used, that they hit someone with. He goes to the gym. He gets his little cocky workout in. He's the only one in the gym. It cracks me up. And he finds a picture in his locker after he showers. We get the typical like Ryan Felipe shirtless scene that you have to have in the late '90s. He's walking to his locker, and he sees a picture in his locker, and it's a picture of his car with the words "I know" on it. So he's the second person to get a note from the killer. So he goes out to check on his car, and someone's in it. I love this scene. They turn the headlights on, and he has a little chase scene with the car. I love it so much. So he gets ambushed by the car and hit by it. But the fisherman, I love this shot. After he comes out of the car and he walks up to Barry, and you think that, oh shit, Barry's about to get killed, because of course we all expect Barry to be the first one to go out of this crew. You're like, oh, here we go, Barry's death scene. But he doesn't kill him. He just taunted him. I love this shot of him walking up to Barry, and you just see his friggin' outfit. It's so good. And Barry's like pretty much begging for his life. What do you want? I'm sorry, blah blah blah. And then we cut to black, and we just find out that he just left him there. Barry's in the hospital. He didn't kill him. So he's just fucking with them right now. He's taking his time. I love it. I love it so much.
I like it too. It's different. Like you said, we all expected him to die pretty early on out of the four.
Right.
But not only does he leave him alive, you're also thinking, okay, he leaves him alive just for the other three to see him so he can kind of interact with them one final time, and then like maybe he'll die in the hospital like the next scene. But no, he's alive, and he's alive for most of the movie going forward. So yeah, we have our core four, as you call them, intact. But yeah, no, I like that. I like that, especially because we just got the Max kill, so it would have been too many kills all at once. Again, the pacing is great in this movie, so we get another chase scene, but we don't get a kill. So it's kind of taking its time with the kills as well. So yeah, I
And
do like that.
he's the one who sees the fisherman like in all his glory first. It's Barry, which is also interesting.
Yes.
That was a cool decision out of the four. Not obviously because Max saw him, but and it's and he's the one who's like tells them, you know, in the hospital, like, you know, some guy fucking with us, a fisherman. And then I love how Barry can't help himself, but right then and there, he's like, you know, Ray, you're a fisherman. Do you have a slicker? I'm like, dude. And then they go back at it, and then I love how the girl's like, guys, like, we can't break up. We got to sit together. And this is when Helen and Julie, they decide to, because Julie obviously she looked into who they killed, and it was supposedly David Egan, the guy who they hit the year before. So they go investigating him, and they find out where his family lived. So then Helen and Julie, they go on a little trip to see Missy, who was David Egan's sister. Again, I love it. It's so well paced. I love when they're walking up to the house. Helen's all of her voice of reason. She's like, should we really be walking up to the house of the family of the guy we killed? And then Julie's like, yeah, let's go. And Helen's like, you know, Jodie Foster did this in Silence of the Lambs, and a murderer answered the door. I love that scene. So yeah, they go see Missy, and we get a nice cameo from Anne Heche. She's really like the perfect amount of creepy, but you kind of feel bad for her when she starts talking about her brother. And I love the reaction shots on Julie and Helen because they're just like, oh my god, we tore a family apart, you know, because of what we did. It's just very, it's not even meant to be a scene with chills and thrills. It's just supposed to be a dramatic. Again, I like how this movie has these moments of taking its time so we get the emotional impact on specifically Helen and Julie to see what this has done to them. And I think that scene with Missy was very well acted and very well done, you know. Missy brings up, you know, they're like, oh, did David have any close friends, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, you know, there's this one guy who came to see me after his death. I think it's named Billy Blue. So, like, anyone with, like, half a brain would be like, that's a made-up name. So that's a little hint we get right there. So then Julie gets too fed up and, like, you know, anxious and upset, and she pretty much leaves with Helen. And then this is the scene we get after Anne Heche does a jump scare. Then they forget their cigarettes. They go back and Julie drops Helen off. And this is the scene I was talking about. I want to get your input on it. When Helen's pretty much just like, you know, Julie, like, I miss us. Like, I want us to be together and figure this out. And like Julie's very standoffish. She pretty much doesn't respond to Helen. Helen's just like, I miss my best friend. And then, you know, Julie's like, yeah, well, a lot of things are different. I I sympathize with Helen in this scene so much because she's grasping for like this friendship, and she wants to move forward, and she wants, you know, she wants them to be what they were. And that's why a lot of people hate Julie, is because of this scene, because she's so cold to Helen. But if you flip it, Helen wasn't there for her the year before. She didn't stick by Julie's side and, you know, say like, we have to go to the cops. She kind of just went with the other 2. Mm-hmm. So people don't think that, like, people are dealing with this shit in so many different ways, and you know, Julie's just still holding that grudge with them. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, Helen's ready to move on, and she wants her best friend back, but Julie can't move on until this is solved and done. So I don't think Julie is in the wrong. I just think it's pretty, you know, it's cold and it's sad because, again, Sarah Michelle Gellar, her like reaction is so like heartbreaking. She's like, oh, okay. She just gets out of the car and walks away. But I don't think Julie's a bad person in this scene. I just think that they're both reacting different ways.
Yeah, I agree. No, I think the reason people hate Julie in this scene is, again, because Sarah Michelle Gellar is such a damn good actress that you really feel for her in this scene, and you can get caught up in the moment. But when you really think about it, like, Julie didn't want any of this. Right. She, from the get-go, wanted to call the cops. So, like, in Julie's mind, it's like she's lumping Helen in with Barry and with Ray, too. Like, the three of them are all in cahoots and caused all of this to happen. I mean, Julie went to college, and she clearly never spoke to Helen in the year that followed the accident, because she didn't know that Helen wasn't in New York anymore. So she kind of disconnected herself from this town and from these people. And now when she gets this note, she's being dragged back into this, and she's got to like solve this mystery with Helen that she never wanted in the first place. So I totally empathize with Julie. It's just like I said, Sarah Michelle Gellar is such a good actress that you
so
really
good.
feel for these characters, and you realize that they made a mistake.
Right.
You just can't blame Julie for not,
No.
for not, what's the word? Giving in and just
Right.
totally being friends with her again. Of course not. Like, it's going to take time, like she's only been
It's
home,
also
a
because
couple
they're
days.
realizing too late when she realized right away what they should have done. You know what I mean? It took them a
Mhm.
year to come to the conclusion of, okay, we fucked up. We're
And I
literally
don't
getting
think
taunted.
they ever apologize to Julie, like, directly, and say, they never have a scene where they all say, like, Julie, like,
No.
you were right, we were wrong.
Yeah,
They're
Ray
just trying to
does, but towards the end.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the other
you're
two,
right, he does, yeah. But yeah, especially not Helen. She kind of just was like, oh, I
no.
miss us, and it's like,
Right.
well,
And I do
like,
empathize with that too because, she doesn't need to apologize, but, Julie needs something and Helen needs something different. It's just two different
uh-huh,
people doing two different things.
yeah.
It's sad though because they're so you can tell they're so bonded.
No, I feel for both of them in this scene, and
Yeah.
I don't get why people don't like Julie in this scene. I never got that at all. Yeah.
Yeah. But we get a great, again, talk about
But
Sarah Michelle
again, this
Gellar.
is why this scene alone is like, they would have made such a good pair in the sequel.
I know, man.
As they're it's kind of like a Sydney and a Gale in a way, like you said,
I know.
comparison to Scream, how they kind of evolve with their relationship. But yeah, it's a shame. But
we get a pretty creepy scene. The next scene's iconic too. Again, of course,
Mhm.
it's with Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah.
So she goes into her house and she's like, "Hey, Dad," and again, she has that like cracking voice. She's like, "Hey, Dad." He doesn't even fucking respond to her. I'm like, God. So she
Yeah.
goes, gets a Coke, and the shot when she's walking into the kitchen, you just see this is so good. The fisherman just opens the door. First of all, Helen, lock the fucking door. There's someone taunting you. Second of all,
I know.
But the killer, he opens the front door and you just see that. I don't know, man. Again, something about that outfit. It's so eerie. He's just hulking in that front door. And it's so well shot because Helen's going to get the soda and then she's coming around the hallway and then he's going up the stairs. And once she turns to go to the stairs, he just cuts off the frame. It's so well executed and suspenseful because she's walking upstairs to where the killer is. And again, you'd think like, oh my God, is this the end of Helen? So she goes upstairs. Her sister comes and pretty much verbally abuses her a little bit. And then, she's like, "You have to be at the shop tomorrow." And Helen's like, it's 4th of July. I have to do the pageant. It's tradition. Blah blah blah. And she's like, "Oh, you're so pathetic with your hair. So pathetic. Blah blah blah." I'm like, God damn, this poor girl. So she goes to bed. And then Helen gets in bed. So we get a shot of the closet. Again, they don't show us him, but it's lingering on the closet. So like, oh shit, he's in her closet. Oh my gosh, he's gonna go to sleep. He's gonna come out, and like, God knows what's gonna happen. But nothing happens. It fades to black, and then we go to the next morning. Again, you don't think that she's gonna make it, but she wakes up, and you're like, oh, what do you do? Just watch her all night? That's still creepy, but okay. So then she just like, kind of like does this, and then it's like, oh shit, her hair's coming out. And especially for a girl, I feel like that's very scary. But she's just hair, like clumps of hair everywhere. And then she gets up and she sees in her mirror it says soon. And to me, that's the scariest one out of the three because she's like, oh my God, he's gonna like start actually doing something soon. The other ones are just like, I know. This is like soon, like shit's going down soon. And then she has her badass, she just like punches the mirror and has her like scream queen scream. It's so good. I don't know. I love that whole sequence of events between him walking in the house and her going to bed. Again, it's just about the tension in this movie. It's not about the kills, really. It's so good.
When I first saw this, at this point, after I saw this sequence, I thought it was Helen that was the killer. Because first of all, I thought it was all in her head and that she was the killer, because only a complete psychopath would take a can of Coke and pour a little bit and drink it and then leave it on the counter. I'm like, well, who does that?
Dude, she has a pageant the next day. She has a pageant the next day.
A full can of Coke. No wonder her dad is pissed at her. She's probably a fucking slob and leaves shit all over the kitchen. I'm like,
oh my God, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Yeah, so, yeah, and then when nothing happens all night and she wakes up to hair, I'm like, oh, when I first watched this, I think I was like, oh, is this all in Helen's head and maybe she's the killer? We're gonna pull like a high tension on us, But
Oh
no,
god.
I think it was creepy the notion that he was just in there all night.
Yeah.
But I'm saying to myself, like, how the fuck did she not wake up? You know, she's got the crown on her too. I don't know if you mentioned that, and he cuts all of
Yes.
her hair out. It's like, damn, she's a heavy sleeper,
All right.
especially after having a
He
shot
must
of
have
that
just done like
coke.
little gentle like snips, like gentle. I would like
Yeah,
to see the behind the scenes of how he did it.
yeah.
But it's not about how she ends it with that scream that like gets to me. It's like this
Mm.
girl is just
She
tormented.
has I would say at least 3
Amazing
iconic
screams.
screams
Yeah,
in this movie. Yeah. She's
it's so
fucking
good.
awesome. I love it. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just such a well executed scene. That's just worried about getting you on edge. It's not worried about giving you that 1-2,
Mhm.
whatever quick jab and
Cuz he's
kill.
still toying with him. He's
Yep,
still
he's
messing
not
with him.
ready
He's
yet. It's
not.
not the
Yeah.
anniversary yet. Not just
Yep.
yet. So the next day, obviously, what happens is Helen doesn't go right to Julie first. She goes right to Barry because that's Barry's. She calls Barry, and then they call
Mhm.
Julie. So then Julie's on her way over. She's like, "Oh my god, I'll be right over." And then this again, it's it's a crazy scene. She's driving, and she hears like this like in her trunk. She just hears like some like crackling. And she keeps hearing knocking, and she like, oh shit. She pulls over and she opens her trunk, and it's Max covered in like 1,000 crabs, which is so funny because the fisherman must be superhuman that he can clear this trunk out so
I
quick. But
know. This kind of bothers
again,
me. Yeah.
I defend it because I'm like, I don't know how far she went. She could have ran like 2 miles to the house. Like you don't
Yeah.
know when she pulled over, so he could have
Uh-huh.
had a decent amount of time. But it just cracks me up that there's literally a
Yeah.
1,000 crabs in the trunk that disappear, and it's like spotless.
He must have had like a whole cleaning service van cuz when they open the trunk again, it's spotless.
Oh,
There's no
it's
like
fucking beautiful.
stickiness or it's not wet at all. It's like, wait,
No,
what the fuck?
but
Yeah.
it is a
And
cool.
none of the
Yeah.
neighbors, it was broad daylight. None of the neighbors like witnessed that, The guy
But I thought
taking
I've never
crabs
seen
out.
like I'm like that's cool that it's like and it's like creepy because the crabs are like coming in and out of his mouth and shit. So cool shot. It's just logically,
Yeah.
you got to suspend some disbelief in this
But
scene.
again,
Cool.
it's kind of fucking with you because just like with the Helen scene overnight, when they get back to the car, when they open the trunk, not only is it empty, but it looks like it hasn't been touched. Like it has like
Right.
the toolkit and everything. So you're like, oh shit! Like, are they going nuts? Are they going
Right.
crazy? Did Helen just like pull her hair out? So at this point, I'm
Right.
not so sure that I pretty much knew. I mean, I knew even from the first time I watched it wasn't going to be a supernatural movie. But
Oh no.
I was
Yeah.
like, are they gonna like make it a twist where it's all in their heads? So yeah,
Right.
I think that was intentional to kind of
It's so
trick you a
intentional
little
that
bit.
he
Yeah.
gave her this fucking asshole fisherman gave Julie the most like unrealistic scenario too because he's like, how do I fuck with this one the most? And like have
Yeah.
because obviously Barry is like, are you sure, Julie? Like they're all like, are you
Yeah.
sure? So he's the fisherman's extra asshole to Julie in that scene
Mhm.
because she ends up though just breaking, and this is our iconic Julie scene where she just like he's just fucking with us. He has us exactly where he wants us now. We can't go to the police. We can't do shit now. We're just sitting ducks. And then she has her iconic "What are you waiting for?" scene, which has been parodied so much, but it's so iconic in the movie. She's like,
Mhm.
"What are you waiting for, motherfucker?" She's like, "What are you waiting for? Let's just get on with it." And that's when
Yeah,
you know
with
it's
her.
like she's her twist. Her twist. She turns around. What are you
Yeah.
waiting for?
Yeah,
But
her
that's when you
arms
know, like
stretched out, yeah.
she'll end up being a final girl because she's getting ready. She's getting ready. So she'll be her final girl one day. But yeah, again, iconic scene. It's a little over the top and unbelievability, but I like it. But it's interesting because they go right to Ray, and Ray's the only one who hasn't had like something like insane happen to him. So again, they're leading like, could it be Ray? This is a whodunit we're talking
Mhm.
about here. So Barry just goes right to Ray and like fucking starts punching him, and Ray's like, "I got a letter too." And Ray's like, "You got a letter? I got run over. Helen's hair is coleslaw. Julie has a body in her trunk, and you got a letter." It's so funny. I love that. I love
Yeah.
that dialogue so much. He's like, "What?" But again, they all were like, "Guys, let's not break up. Let's get this shit on track." So
This is where
I
they
think
come up with the plan.
Yeah. So Julie, this is important because Julie says, I forget. I think someone says like, well, if it was David Egan, blah blah blah, maybe his friend Billy Blue can be one of our yearbooks, whatever. So they go looking at the yearbook and there's no Billy Blue, and then Julie's like, well, I can bring the yearbook to Missy, David's sister, and she can point him out. But Ray's like, I can't go there. I'm not doing that. He's like, guys, let's just get out of town. So again, he's on the suspect list still. But Julie's pretty much like, forget it, I'll go. And then Helen's like, I want to come with you again. Ugh, Helen just wants to be with Julie, and Julie's like, no, you got to go to the pageant, to see if he shows up. Helen's like, I don't want him to show up, and I'm like, yeah, Julie, I don't want him to show up either to get Helen. But Barry's like, I'll go with Helen and make sure she's good, and then we don't really get Barry. Ray doesn't say what he's doing again, so he's really not helping them either much in this movie.
No,
solve the mystery. He
no,
kind of just wants
all.
no part of it. He wants to just be like, I don't want to get my hands involved. Good luck, pretty much. That's right.
I don't like this because this is really the last time you see Ray until the very end. Yeah. He literally disappears. And I guess he's just been on his boat the whole time. So it's like, I know they were doing that to kind of
he's working, blah, blah, blah.
set it up.
Right.
But I wish we got a little bit of more Ray.
Yeah, that's what I do. If I'm going to critique some of the movie, I think, we could have had more Ray
because there's ways to make it suspicious, but like you're just like, wait a minute, where the fuck is Ray been this whole time?
Scream does it the whole friggin' movie. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I agree with that. That's my one. I will give you that. I do agree with that. But it's just so clever because they each have an excuse to split up.
Yeah.
So they go do their own thing. Julie goes back to Missy's. Helen and Barry are doing the parade, and Ray is supposedly working because he always has to work. So it's just Julie goes back to the house, and this is when we get the revelation that Missy tells Julie, like, David left a suicide note. So like his family thinks that he committed suicide. And then Julie's like, Missy's like, we had to keep this because she's like, he left a note, but we had to keep it from the insurance company so they wouldn't pay us out, whatever, life insurance, blah, blah, blah. So Julie's like, this isn't a suicide note, this is a death threat. So then we're like, oh, death threat, this is interesting. So someone was threatening David Egan a year ago. So again, there's little nuggets of the story coming out, but it's not like spoon-fed to us. It's kind of like just building and building. Missy gets mad, obviously, because Julie's literally telling her that her brother, like, she's telling Missy, like, no, this is not what happened. We did this, blah, blah, blah. And Missy's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, you're overstepping. And I don't blame Missy in that scene either. So we're getting little nuggets of the story slowly. In that.
I like the little nuggets. This is one of my nitpicks. I think they give away a little too much in this scene when they mention the tattoo, that he didn't have a tattoo.
Right.
Because we never mentioned that.
He committed suicide because his girlfriend died a year before that in a car accident that he was involved in, David Egan.
Yeah,
that's
what's her name?
Like
Susie or something?
Susie Willis. Yeah. Susie Willis. They say her last name too.
We see the tattoo of it says Susie on his arm, the person they ran over.
Right.
And Julie sees that, and then she brings that up. And Missy says he didn't have a tattoo. I thought that was the one kind of giveaway that they maybe should have not revealed. Right. Because at that point, I pretty much knew kind of what happened. I knew that it wasn't actually David Egan that they hit and that it was someone else.
Right.
So I think maybe they could have gave us breadcrumbs but not revealed like so much in that scene.
Right. Well, because we're still led to believe that the David Egan could have been the guy in the beginning that they hit because he was in that area, but we just don't know how David Egan died for real. And they think it's one of his friends. It's just all, I get what you're saying though, because it's confirmed that whoever they hit wasn't David Egan because of the tattoo. Like, he didn't have that tattoo.
Yeah, because Missy is hysterical and she's like still mourning, so you understand why she would be confused on things. But but the tattoo thing is like pretty concrete.
He either had it or he didn't.
Yeah, exactly. So they kind of I don't know.
So yeah, we have
even if they would have like mentioned the tattoo and Missy would have like given her like a weird look, like and not said it, that would have been better. But that's just a nitpick I have. So yeah.
But then it also leads you to know whoever they hit was connected to Susie, who was murdered the year before in the car accident with David. So that's another hint of like where the plot may be heading. So then we get, again, I keep saying, we go back to the parade and Helen, they're on like what do you call it, like a float. They're going down the street and Helen's looking up and she thinks she sees the fisherman. But again, this is a fishing town, like Nolan said. So Barry goes to chase this guy. Oh, this scene is so sad. This is so sad. he tackles this guy, but it's like a super elderly man who's like having a fucking stroke. And
Yeah.
Barry is just like, where the fuck are you? I'm like, dude, what do you mean? Call an ambulance. This guy's gonna die.
I know. He's literally can't speak. I think he's having a heart attack.
I'm
for
like,
sure.
this is
like,
so sad.
add that to the body count of the movie because I think that guy died.
Barry's second kill, maybe.
Did he even let him? Did he even get him up? Like he probably
I
can't
don't
get
even
himself
know. He
up.
was just like, oh fuck, I don't. Where is he? Barry's
old
just
man.
like on a mission to catch this guy. He doesn't care about anyone else.
Does
But
that guy
when Barry's
officially have a
doing that-
name in the cast?
I don't know, but he needs an award.
Oh
for that
no,
acting.
he's just old man on Google.
Well, old man needs an award for stroke acting.
I know.
But when Barry's doing that shenanigans, Helen looks up and you see the real fisherman, and he just raises his hook at her.
Yeah.
Love that shot. Love it. So good. She really does get a lot of the good scenes in this movie, man. She gets like all the good scenes.
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
So then we go to the pageant. It's the Croker beauty pageant because Helen has to, give her crown to the new pageant winner of the year. And Barry, it makes me so like it's stupid decision, but I get it because he wants to see everything, the vantage point. So he's up at the spot, the balcony where they were the year before looking. But I'm also like, oh, you're alone and you're not watching your back. I get why he did it, but I'm like, dude, you're in a very vulnerable position right now. So we watch this lady who looks like she's 50 giving a performance.
High schooler, I know.
I don't know if there's an age
this might
limit.
be one of the most. No, they're supposed to be high schoolers. I think.
Are they? Oh yeah, I didn't know if there's like
Yeah.
can you be older, but I'm like, this woman does not look. And even Helen, she's like, Jesus Christ.
This got to be one of the most egregious actresses playing a high schooler I think I've ever seen. Like
she's doing her little like dance, whatever, singing scene, and then Helen and Barry are like exchanging smiles because they're kind of getting that, they're having some feelings again.
She's happy that he's there protecting
Yes.
her. Yeah,
Yes.
she feels safe. Yeah.
But again, Helen's just gonna get tormented because Helen's gonna get tormented, and she looks up and she sees. I love the little flashes. You don't see it right away, but the fisherman comes up behind Barry, and it's about time for Barry's death. Unfortunately, finally, and I feel bad for Barry in that scene, and he was an asshole for most of the movie. Yeah, he gets killed, he gets hooked. And I love how they don't show. It's not like you see the bloody hook keep going down. You just see his face, the reaction shots of him like screaming and pretty much dying. You don't see the hook like gut him, and I think that was smart for them to do it like that. And you just really cut back. What really sells it is cutting to Helen's screams, like screaming for him, like Barry, Barry, no. And these fucking assholes are holding her back and not letting her go help him. That pisses me off.
I know.
Every time
I never understood
So
that.
annoying.
Like, why are they holding her?
Like,
That's
let
so
her go.
weird.
She's
Yeah.
trying to go. Like, let her go. Get her your hands off her. She even says, she's like, get off of me.
I know. So weird. Like, why would random people just like grab her?
It's so annoying. And then the cop is no better. He's the worst cop in the world. He goes up there and she goes with him. First of all, like, dude, she just said there's a killer
checks for
up
like
there.
5 seconds. Yeah.
He checks for 2 seconds, and literally when he turns around, there's like, if you just looked a little further, there's fucking blood dripping, dude.
Yeah.
He's like, who's Barry? There's no Barry. Like, making her feel like gaslighting her. He's literally like, there's no Barry.
Yeah,
like,
and
what?
I get Helen is like inconsolable at this point, but she should have she saw like with
she's in
her
shock.
eyes,
Right,
like
literally.
she should have like fought harder to say like
She's
no.
like, dude, like, no, he got killed.
I
Like,
witnessed a
there's
murder. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
But I hate that cop so much. I really do. So annoying. But anyway, so the cop's like, honey, I'll take you home. She's like, really? There's a fucking murder scene here. So this is when the best scene of the whole movie pretty much gets going. He's driving Helen home, and she's shit talking him. She's like, you made Barry, like, bullshit police. You're gonna like, you're not doing your job. Because he's making fun of her. He's like, how did he cut your hair? Like, with fucking the hook? She's like, with scissors, asshole. I love that scene when she gives it back to him. But he goes down a shortcut to an alleyway because the roads are closed because of the parade. So he turns down an alleyway and sees a dude in front of his truck, supposedly broken down. And I'm just like, oh, don't get out of the car, dude. And he's like, I'm just going to pull over and see if this young man needs help. And Helen's like, no, there's a fucking killer on the loose. But he gets up, and then he slowly walks up, and Helen's coming to the realization that it's the fisherman. And she has her second big, great scream. She's just like screaming, behind you. And then the fisherman turns around and gets him in the stomach and guts him, and you see the blood coming out of his mouth. I like that scene, and that's when Helen just screams. Like, she just screams in fear.
Mhm.
And then she's fucking stuck in the back of a cop car. He's such an asshole. He didn't even unlock it for her before he went to check on the dude just in case. So she's trapped, and the fisherman's doing his creepy Michael Myers walk towards her. And thank God she's wearing heels because she can fucking break the shit out of that window. So she gets out and she's like hustling right away. She's not giving up without a fight. And we have this iconic chase scene with the fisherman. I love when they turn the corners, like you see the fisherman's shadows on the streets. It's so good. And she sprints to her family's shop where her sister Elsa is. Oh, and Elsa pisses me off in this scene. So Helen gets to the front door and she's like pleading, begging, like Elsa, Elsa, like let me in, get the keys. And Elsa's like, coming, coming, like no big deal. She's like literally death, like screaming for her life. And then she's like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
I forgot the keys, and turns around. Oh, it stresses me out so much. I'm like, don't kill her, don't kill her. You know what it reminds me of? The original Halloween when Laurie is like banging on the door for Tommy to let her in. She's like, Tommy, Tommy is like, coming, like just waking up. It reminds me of that every time, that scene. So that's a little homage to Halloween right there. But she does get in the shop. What do you think about that the chase scene before the chasing even continues even more? What do you think of the whole set piece of that so far? Because it keeps
No,
going.
that was cool. Yeah, I like the cop scene. It's so intense because she's trapped in the cop car.
Yeah.
And she's a badass. She gets out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, couple hits
like,
with the shoe,
right.
and she crawls out, with the broken glass, and she's still in her heels. She's running pretty quick with the heels. Yeah, I think it's pretty good because right away as soon as you pull up, you can see the fisherman outfit.
Oh yeah,
it's good enough lighting, so like the cop is fucked. So it's kind of like, you're just waiting for that chase scene to happen.
Yes.
So I think it's done pretty well. And that whole, like you said, the whole Elsa scene, like, what the fuck, man? Like, your sister is literally like freaking the fuck out, and if I saw that, I'd be like, holy shit, and I would grab keys, and I would be like, oh my god, get in here, It's like so fucking stupid. Yeah, I totally agree.
So annoying, but she does get in, and then Elsa's like, what the hell? You're crazy, pretty much, and she tells Elsa, did you lock the back door? Go lock the back door. And then Elsa's like, watch, let's just do what I say, god damn it. Like just fucking do something. Jesus. So she goes to call the cops while Elsa goes to lock the back door, but of course she didn't get to the back door in time. And then Elsa gets killed. She has a pretty good scream too, by the way, Elsa, when she gets slashed. That was a pretty good scream.
Yeah, it was.
The blood, yeah. And I love how you see him, he literally dragging her body, like the hook is just fucking just dragging her to the bathroom. I love that shot of him just dragging her body across the floor.
Dude, I know we've been saying it, but Sarah Michelle Gellar, man, because when she screams, her facial acting when she's on the phone and she hears the scream, like the terrified
the
look,
way she turns around,
so
she's
good.
Like, she's like, oh, it's like her pause. It's like she knows. She's like, oh, fuck,
it's
he's
so
in
good.
here. He's in here.
It's so good. It's like chef's kiss.
It's so fucking good. So she goes down. This is so suspenseful. It's so damn good. She goes down, and it's like a beauty, whatever we call it, beauty, whatever, boutique. So there's like shit, like plastic wrap on the mannequins. So she's walking through, and I mean, we know he's under one of those fucking things ready to pop out. But she goes and she turns around slightly, and they wait a minute, and then he just fucking pops at her. I remember the first time I fucking jumped like 10 feet in the air when I saw that scene.
I love that scene. I love when movies do this with like mannequins and stuff. The only thing is I wish it was drawn out a little bit longer. I think it could have been more of a creepy scene if she was kind of moving through the mannequins, because as soon as you see him, like it's see-through, so it's him.
Oh yeah.
At least you could see that it's him right away. So I think they could have made it a little bit more suspenseful, but that's me just being greedy.
Right, you want more. You just want more. Yeah, you want more.
Yeah, I just want more.
It's like the Sydney and Scream moment. You're like, you want to have the barn chase scene.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yes. I love my extended, stalking scenes.
Yes, me too. Yeah. But so she gets away again. He attacks her, but she gets away. But then she finds her poor sister, and she lets out another blood curdling scream. But then she thinks like right away, like she's a thinker, and she's not giving up. She gets on that like whatever like manual like rope elevator, old school.
Oh my
she's
god,
like
the slowest elevator possible.
But it's so scary because he's like trying to hook her, and she keeps having and she was smart enough to take off her heels, by the way. Again, another plus.
Yes.
But he's trying to like hook her through the thing, so it's like shit. She's gonna get her fucking like ankle like slit, her Achilles or something. But she gets up, and then it's just so defeating because she's she's like running, trying to get out of there, but she ends up getting cornered in a room. You're like, oh no, they're not gonna kill her, are they? But again, she just doesn't stop because as he's walking towards her, she fucking breaks that window. And right before he can get her, she jumps out. I mean, he goes to hook her and she jumps out. And thankfully, there's like trash and shit. So she lands on that. And you're like, okay, she's going to make it. She's going to make it. And then she gets up. She's running and running. And they're really cruel to us in this scene because she stops. She's like, fuck, where do I go? And then we see fireworks and we hear the parade, the marching band, all that shit. So it's like, oh, civilization. She's going to be safe. So she's running towards it. And we literally see it. We see she's so close. She's so close to being rescued. Ugh. But she gets so close and then she hears something and she turns around. Ugh. And then when she turns around again, he's behind her. And it devastates me every time. But that's when Helen's demise comes and she gets hooked. And it's so... I love how it's intercut with like the marching band going back and forth. It's going back them and her because it's just reminding us like girl was 2 feet away from rescue.
Yeah.
But again, guys, it's one of my favorite chase scenes of all time. But I think people always talk about it because of the ending. She doesn't make it out, unfortunately. So I think it's ballsy, and I wish she was in the sequel. But I think to let us know they're not playing games, it might have been the correct decision. I love Sarah Michelle Gellar. I wish she was in all these movies with Jennifer Love Hewitt, especially because they're gonna make more. But I mean, it let us know, like, he's not fucking around. So it devastates me every time. And that's the scene that I'm talking about where I'm screaming. I'm like, don't turn around. Run, run, run. And I just wish there was a different outcome every time. And that's a testament to Sarah Michelle Gellar that she fucking just makes you root for her so much in that scene. Oh, it gets me sad every time.
Again, we keep bringing up Scream, but that's very Scream-like, right? How she's so close to safety and just gets caught. Yeah. And I don't love that shot. I do love... It's terrifying that she's so close and the marching band and the fireworks are washing out her screams and her dying. I wish it was actually shot better, though. It's very, like, strobe effect, and you don't really see a lot. I wish it was a little bit more clear and a little bit more brutal, I guess.
Okay,
especially for a rated-R movie.
You hear
really especially for a rated-R movie. I wish we saw a little bit more and it was a little bit more clear and concise, but I understand artistically why they did that, and it is terrifying. The fact that she was able to just die literally like 20 feet away from civilization in an alley. Yeah.
So fucked up. It's so fucked up. So yeah, that to me is the sequence of the entire movie, even though the finale is pretty fucking awesome.
But the finale's cool, but I mean, she owns this role. You feel so much for her. Her blood-curdling screams are fucking awesome. She's a badass. She makes like... I want to save it for our Never Split Up moments, but she does make like one kind of silly mistake towards the beginning of the chase scene. I don't want to give it away in case it's one of your moments, but she's a smart character. She gets no help. Like Elsa is literally no help, so you feel for her. The cop is no help. Like she's literally on her own, and
she's really let down by every single person. Yes, every single person. Starting with Barry,
and it's effective too. And we talk about how we wish she was in the sequel, but it gives our villain a pretty good notch under his belt that he was able to kill her because she was a pretty big character and a smart character. So the fact that he was able to get her in the end sets up this finale with Julie and Ray really well because he's a force to be reckoned with now, and they're not going to get off so easy. So. Yeah,
she was pretty much the co-lead of the movie along with Julie until
for sure. Yeah, definitely.
So then we finally cut back to Julie, and she's like putting it all together that Susie was David Egan's girlfriend, and they got into a crash the year before David died, and she died but he lived, and all this shit, blah blah blah. And then she reads about surviving father Ben Willis, blah blah blah. So she puts two together that Ben Willis must have been the guy with the tattoo, and he must have killed David Egan. So she has this all figured. Like she did her homework. I'll give her that. So she's going to run, and she finds Ray. And then she tells him, blah, blah. She's like, we have to go find Barry and Helen. And then Ray's just like, we will, come aboard. I'm like, oh, no, don't come aboard. But she goes and like takes his hand, but she looks down and she sees that his boat, the name is Billy Blue. on the boat that he's on. And then she's like, oh, you're the fisherman. You're the one who went to see Missy. It's like she's just on sensory overload right now. And she just, instead of just like taking a step back and saying like, she just pretty much goes right to blaming him. Which again, I get it because he kept that from her. But she's screaming and panicking, runs away, and then Ray's chasing her like Julie, wait, and then this guy just comes in like fucking sucker punches Ray, like fucking knocks him the fuck out. And this is when, again, we're not gonna get into our moments yet, but Julie, she's like, I need help, and the guy's just like, come aboard, get on board now. I'm like, girl, do not get on board. There's a killer out there, and he's the lone person telling you to get on board. So she runs on board and goes in this room while he's ends up, you see that we pretty much find out right away that he's the bad guy because he like gets the ropes off and like they're gonna go out, they're leaving the dock. So this is when we find out while she's finding out. She goes in the room and she sees pictures of herself, Barry, Helen, and Ray in the room. We saw these articles about the accidents, so it's like this is fucking Ben Melissa's boat. So then he comes in and he's like, you in trouble, sweetie? She's like, yeah, I'm in a lot of trouble. I'm like, you're fucking, I'm about to be in a lot of trouble, Julie. A lot. And then I love the dialogue of him, and he's just like, what have you guys been doing? Partying, drinking, having fun, running people over, getting away with murder. I love that so much. She's like, you're Ben Willis, you're the fisherman, he's like, I've seen you've been doing your homework. I love that interaction so much. He's so menacing in that scene. And then we get there. That's when the set piece kicks off with Julie running through the boat. It's so well executed. It's so well done because most of the time, the last set piece takes place, at a party or at somewhere building or somewhere. But this, they're like on the water. She has nowhere to go than through his boat where he knows everything. So I really love this little chase throughout the boat. It's really cool. But we do see before, as they're going away, Ray, comes to. And he's like, oh, fuck. Julie's on the boat with the killer. So he gets in his little boat and starts motoring out there to go after them. But I really love this pretty much cat and mouse game of Julie and Ben Willis throughout the boat. It's so good. Very good. I love when she's like going through the bottom. And she's pretty smart. She blocks the door with shit. But then he knows there's another entrance. So she ends up going in somewhere else. And I love when she's like putting the ice towards the door. And then unfortunately we see Helen's body come flying down, and then we see she like puts her hand on Barry's body, so she knows that her friends are dead, which is really sad. But her mistake is when she keeps getting stupid. Ray makes it to the boat. I think Ben might knock Ray out right away, quick, and like get him off the boat. But he comes back, and Julie goes up and she sees Ray, but then she screams and distracts Ray. That's when the fisherman gets him again. So she kind of distracts Ray a little bit too much in this finale, but she's good. I like this whole set piece. What do you think about this finale?
I think it's very unique. It's very cool. I love the ice scene where she's I've never seen so much ice in my life.
I know.
So cool when she's like trying to pilot onto the door, because at first you're like, what is she doing? And then you're like, oh, she's trying to barricade the door.
Exactly. She's pretty smart.
She leaves her article of clothing on the handle, so you're like, oh, he can easily follow her, but then she barricades it. But then you're like, wait a minute, she's just barricading herself in at this point because he knows the boat more than she does.
Poor girl has to go back and like get it back up to get out. Like, damn, she's getting a workout too.
You really feel for her because there was I wanted to highlight this about Helen's chase scene, which I think they did subtly but really cool. She had the advantage because it was her family's store. So she knew the store, but now this is the fisherman's boat, so this is his territory. So Julie's definitely at a disadvantage here. So I think they did 100%. That pretty well. They played with that well. And yeah, every time she screams, Ray, when he's on the boat and he looks, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you see Ray and the fisherman standing there doing a face-off. Like, why the fuck would you distract him? I know.
She does have a good scream, though. She does have a really good scream.
Yeah.
Jennifer Love Hewitt.
That's a dumb moment for sure. I don't like that.
But so pretty much, guys, you really should. We're not going to go like scene by scene, but it's a very well executed final showdown and set piece. I highly, guys, watch the movie. But it ends with, they ultimately overpower him, and Ray uses. They rig and sever Ben Willis's hand. Yes. And they send him overboard.
You mentioned the score earlier on. I noticed it this time watching it. The score during this sequence. I think when Ray gets knocked overboard and he's climbing the fishing net and stuff. If you listen to it, it's very Jaws-esque. It has
Okay.
the like the orchid,
I
like
just
the
love it.
dun
I
dun
love
dun
it.
dun dun
And
dun
like the
dun
it's
dun.
just
Like
everything's working
yeah,
for it.
it's
Yeah.
the score is really reminiscent of Jaws. So I just want to give that a shout out. I noticed that the last time I watched it,
Oh,
but
that's it. I
yeah,
like that you bring it up. I like that you
the
brought that
score
up
is really well
because
done.
um let me just I just have because I have to just talk about it one more time. Helen's chase scene again at the end of it when she's running towards everybody. They have that
Mhm.
like hopeful music playing, like, oh, she's this hopeful score, she's gonna make
Yeah,
it. I'm like, yes,
yeah.
and then like they're fucking assholes. That's why I forgot to bring that up. I'm like, they're such assholes for doing that. But yeah,
I think a lot of horror movies fall victim to um over engineering the sound design in intense moments and stuff, but I love this score so much because it doesn't do that. I
right.
watched a movie recently. It was a pretty big release this year. I don't want to give it away at all because
Ooh,
we're going to cover this movie soon, but it's
ooh.
a movie that a lot of people like. I don't like it for certain reasons, and one of the reasons is because it's way over like done with the sound design and the score, and
How are
it's
you not gonna
all
tell me
like
what this movie
in
is
your
now?
face. I can if you want me to.
I'm just no, you don't have
um
to. I'm curious.
it's a big release that I haven't seen yet. You could probably figure it out, and it came
Okay.
out this year. I just watched it recently. If you can figure out the context clues there, it just came onto streaming recently.
Oh, I know what it is. The
Yeah,
fucking score is so
yeah,
awesome.
but anyway, just going back to yeah, let's divert. Going back to this movie, I love how it's not overdone.
Right.
It's in the background like it should be, you know, and yeah, it's good.
It complements it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so they get rid of him. They sever his hand and send him overboard. But again, they just really sever his hand. It's not. We assume that he's dying. He's at sea and dead. You know, but they don't. The cops come and they question them, but they don't recover the body. They just recover his hand.
Yeah, I love what the cop says too. He's like, "Oh, I'm sure we'll recover the body. They always
Yeah.
wash up." I'm like, "Yeah, no, it's definitely not gonna wash up."
But I love the cops like, do you know why this guy would be after? They're just like, no. They don't want to relive any of that shit.
Yeah.
I also do love before Ray does that Ben Willis he goes to Julie he's like Happy 4th of July Julie and he goes to kill her. I love that
Mm.
line. But so yeah, so Ray and Julie live and we cut to another year later and Julie's in college and she doesn't look like she's a ghost anymore. She's like, getting back with it. She's on the phone with Ray, like, they're together. And then she goes to enter the shower and she sees like a letter or like an envelope. And she opens it, but it's just a pool party, blah blah blah. But then she goes to the showers again and it's all like steamy, and then she walks up and she sees I still know on the friggin' shower, and I love that we know right there the title of the sequel. I love it. And then moments later, did you just hear like the little like ding of whatever the guy was holding in the beginning of the movie? I love how they brought it back, the neck, whatever it was, the
Mm.
pendulum. But you hear the ding, and then the fisherman just comes crashing through the shower. Obviously, we won't give it away, but in the sequel, that didn't really happen. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's how it ends. Nice little jump scare, and that's so 90s. But I love this movie, man. I love it. So
It's
that's
so
I know we do
90s.
last
It's
summer. I know
definitely
we
the
do last
cheesiest
summer.
part of the movie.
Yeah, but it
Yeah.
was a good little last gotcha.
Yeah. All right, yeah. So that's it.
Yep.
Anything else you want to talk about this movie, like overall themes
Probably, but
or I know it's so tough, but any last thoughts before we get into our moments and stuff?
no, I just don't think it gets enough credit because a lot of people just look at it and say it's a screamer buff, but no, it's a very well made movie, and even I can be and you guys can comment and say I'm biased. I'm 90s and I'm just obsessed with this. But I think if you watch it and compare it to the horror movies that come out today, it's really well made. Like acting wise, score, filmmaking, directing, they put a lot of care into it that I don't think goes into many productions these days. They're just kind of like how do we cater to these people and how do we make the quickest buck versus really fleshing out the story in the movie. So yeah, I love it. It's an all timer for me, and I cannot wait until they officially announce this requel that we're supposedly getting um in the next year or two, I hope. But yeah, man, this movie. This is an all timer for me. So I'm not gonna say too much more about it. Guys, watch
Okay,
it if you
cool.
haven't. 4th of July movie, perfect. Watch this and the sequel back to back. It's a fun slasher movie, even if you don't care about anything else. You'll have a good time. It's a fun slasher.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you haven't seen this movie in a while, definitely we both implore you guys to go and check it out again after listening to us. Seems like we both liked it quite a bit. It's an all-timer for Anthony. I think it stands up. It's very straightforward, but the acting and the set pieces really draw you in, and it makes that movie a little bit more elevated from a typical slasher. So okay, great. Let's roll along and get into our never split up moments, shall we?
Yes.
So you won. You get to go first. So I want to hear your moment.
I have two that drive me absolutely insane. It's so hard to go which one because one of them's Helen and one of them's Julie, who are my two favorite characters.
Oh wow, I have one from each too. That's funny. Maybe we have the same ones.
No, I don't, because you said yours from Helen's in the beginning of the chase, and mine's literally... So my Helen will be when she turns around to looks back.
Okay,
I think I'm going to go with that one because every time I get so upset because maybe he was still there anyway, but if she just charged straight forward, she would at least had a fighting chance and knew he was there. When she turns around, she's so vulnerable. So I'm going to go with, when she sees the hope and runs to the crowd, she thinks she hears something and turns back rather than just like, I see people, let me just run to safety. She stops and it leads to her death. And I don't want her to die. I didn't want her to die. And I get so, I scream at the TV. When I tell you I scream at the TV every time I watch it, and I know that she doesn't make it, I'm just rooting for her so much. But yeah, so mine is that Helen turns around for one last time before she gets to safety in that alleyway.
Okay.
I won't say my Julie one because I don't know if you're going to say it, but we can discuss that after.
I will say that doesn't bother me like it bothers you because I think she was kind of checking her surroundings because she knew how close she was. And I don't think her turning around would have made a difference because he was on the other side of her. He was between her and the parade anyway.
Seen him. She would have at least seen him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? If she just
I think she was
shit.
like making sure he didn't come up behind her one last time, but it's
he's fucking
definitely
steamrolling that shit to the crowd. Give a shit. I'll fucking be
oh man, this is tough.
Yeah, I'm curious.
This is tough. I'm glad you didn't go with anything from the first act with the car scene because I almost said this as a stipulation not to do that with our moments because
that was a whole stupid
that
sequence.
makes the movie. That's
right.
The whole point of the movie. So it's kind of stupid to pick a moment from that sequence.
That dumb decision is the reason why we have I Know What You Did Last Summer. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So you really can't pick that. This is tough.
Can you
I think I'm going to go with
when you do it, say both, but I want to hear all of your options. Yeah.
I am. I actually had a couple too. I'm not going to go with Helen because you went with Helen.
Okay.
So I'll go with Julie.
Okay.
My Helen scene was, I think, her dumbest moment. She goes to Elsa to the shop. I said that funny. No.
Goes to Elsa.
I mean, that was a dumb moment to trust
Don't go
Elsa,
to fucking Elsa. She's not going to help you for shit.
No, not only does she go to Elsa, but she fucking, when she gets into the store, she tells Elsa to go lock the back door instead of doing it herself.
Okay, that's good.
She runs upstairs and calls the cops instead of just doing it herself. You know Elsa's like nonchalant about this whole thing. Like, fucking take matters into your own hands. Yeah. So I always yell at her when she does that. I really wanted to pick that, and maybe I should have, but I'm going to, since you went with Helen, kind of the same sequence, I'm going to not pick that.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with Julie. This is kind of a two-parter, but it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same thing. When Julie goes to Ray at the end, and she figured out who the killer is, and then she sees the boat name, and instantly does a 180 and thinks that Ray is the killer.
Right.
That's my moment. That really is my moment. That's my moment. She didn't have conviction in herself to believe the investigating that she did. And she just kind of like everything went out the window. Logic went out the window, and she just was focused on the boat and Ray. And he was being kind of sketchy, but she didn't like question it at all. And that leads into her trusting Ben Willis to go on his boat. So
Right.
it's kind of a two-parter, but I'm yelling
Okay.
at her through the entire sequence. Like, dude, trust your gut, girl. Like you got yourself that far.
Right.
You spent all day on your own investigating this, and like you have a solid theory. And then just because even when I was watching it, like just because what is the alias Billy
Billy Blue. Billy Blue.
Billy Blue, just because he's Billy Blue, even I put it together like
Right. He was
it was
just wanted to pay
because
his respect.
he wanted to pay his respect. It didn't mean that he was the killer. So that always bothered me. So I'm going to go with that moment. I guess Julie not trusting herself and just
Okay.
instantly thinking that Ray is the killer,
Okay.
and just being so like stupid in that moment to go with Ben on his boat as well.
And that should be a lesson to him. You're right. Like, just be honest. Like, if you just told the crew like why you did that, like they would have been like,
Mhm.
okay, you wanted to pay your respects, but you didn't want to. Obviously, you couldn't say who you were because you're guilty.
Yeah.
So he should have. That's his never. That's
And
his
that goes
moment.
back to how everyone handled it differently too.
Yeah.
Like how they all like he couldn't live with
Right.
himself, so he had
And
to
I don't blame
go
him for
and
going, but
meet
I just
Missy.
wish he told, at least
Yeah.
Julie at the very least. He told her at the end. Obviously, explained, but I mean, everyone's dead.
Yeah.
Mine would have
Was
been.
that your moment
My moment
as well?
was I wouldn't have even had to. My moment would have just been her just automatically getting on the boat with another guy who is like a
Yeah.
fucking creep. And I mean, if it's not right, it's this dude. I mean, come on. So
Mhm.
that would have been mine for her. But these are both, I mean, classic, pretty much never split up moments we got here. So this will be
Yes.
a good one.
Yeah.
Helen and
We got our
Julie.
final girl making a dumb choice, and then we got, Helen, the fan favorite, who literally gets herself killed. So you have a strong one too, for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
this will be
literally
a good
direct
one.
result of her
Oh,
death.
it's
So
so upsetting.
yeah. All right, cool. Well, let's get into our scores then. Do you want me to go first? Or do you want to go
uh,
first?
I can't remember who went first last time. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want.
Okay. I'll go first.
Okay, cool.
I always end up liking these movies more when we do episodes on them. It's so funny because this movie is good. I've always liked it a lot. And then like talking about it with you and talking about the acting and the set pieces especially and the score that I never really thought about before. It's really like made me realize like there really isn't. I mentioned a couple. I call them nitpicks, but like they're nitpicks. They're really
Right.
not like big glaring holes in the movie. It's a solid movie and it's a solid slasher and it's not over the top. It doesn't have a high body count and it does have some gore, but like you said, there's a couple kills that are off screen that are kind of implied. You see like their faces and stuff. You don't see the actual hook going in. I wish we got a little bit more cool hook action. I wish he used the hook in cooler ways.
Well, wait for the sequel.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's true. But other than that, I think the reason it's still so good is because it has that great direction and that great acting and stuff. It carries it. The characters really carry this story. You feel for all four characters. I don't feel so much for Barry, but even to Barry's credit, at the end, you kind of feel bad for him because
You
he's
do.
looking out for Helen. He's there for Helen. He's not being a dickhead. So. Yeah, I like this movie a lot. This is going to be a high score for me, especially for a slashers. This is tough. I'm going to give this an 8.4.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Good. I was nervous. I'm like, that's all right. That's really good. Cool. All
No,
right,
this
very
is
nice.
this is a great movie. This is a great
Awesome.
movie. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Good. Yeah. I mean, guys. I mean, I always bring it up, but Scream is a character focused franchise, and this movie is very It's worried. It wants to flesh out its characters more than just get to the kills, and that's my sweet spot with these kind of movies because it makes me fall in love and root for the characters. And I think this movie, it doesn't do it on Scream's level because those are all time characters for me, but it does it so damn well, and it just makes me fall in love with this crew that did a horrible thing, and that's very. I don't know. It's crazy that they did that. You know what I mean? That they made me feel for these people who I would, in any other slasher movie, I'd be like, all right, Jason, all right, Freddy, let's fuck these people up. You know what I mean? So I love this movie. It's an all timer. It came out at the perfect time for me as a kid. That made me I fell in love with it, and I watched it over and over and over. It's part of my life. It always will be. I love it so much. Yeah, it's a 9. My nitpick is I guess I would have liked the writers to incorporate Ray a little better into this movie.
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
know, he could be a red herring, but you could still use him a little bit. I mean, it's Freddie Prinze Jr. Use him.
Yeah.
So he really just came into play in the beginning and really the end. His scenes in the middle are really just he's thrown in here and there just so we remember that he's in the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, so that's my nitpick is maybe they really did really well with the other three, but maybe they could have done a little more with him. But that's again, that's my really only nitpick. It's so it's not I guess a 10 for me, but it's a 9.9 because it's an all timer.
Okay.
It's a 9.9. Yeah,
9.9. Wow.
I rewatch it
Wow.
more than like actual like film masterpieces. You know, I watch this movie all the
Wow.
time. Yeah,
Okay. Whew, that's high. I mean, I knew it was
yeah,
going to be high nines, but 9.9. Okay.
yeah.
That's as good as it gets almost. Okay. All right. There you have it. 8.4 for me, 9.9 for Anthony. We definitely both love this movie. It's an all-timer for Ant. It's not quite all-timer for me, but every time I watch it, I don't regret it. I'd never pop this in and say, "Oh, I wish I watched something else." It's just it's
Right.
so fun. Even if it's just the eye candy of, Jennifer Love Hewitt and Sarah Michelle Gellar. It's you can't go wrong with this movie. And Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah,
Good looking dude. And
yeah. And
Ryan
Ryan
Felipe.
Felipe. Yeah, too.
Yeah, he's not my cup of
Oh.
tea as much, but kind of an asshole, but yeah, it's a great movie, and definitely check it out again if you haven't in a while. That's about it. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Real quick, do you want to we have a new review, right? We have a new
Oh,
someone review. Do you have
let
that
me
on hand?
let me
You
pull
want to
it
shout
up.
them out?
Yeah, let me pull it up.
Thanks, guys, again for all of your ratings and your reviews and your comments on YouTube. We really appreciate it. I'm pretty sure that helps us with the algorithm and stuff, so we definitely appreciate that. It's we're still growing. We're still smaller. We got a small following, but we appreciate every single one of you, and we really enjoy doing what we do. But I do have that review.
Yes. So from Trina Blonde on Apple Podcast, as a fellow aficionado, they know their stuff and are lots of fun to listen to. Add this to your podcast rotation. Really appreciate that. I hope these reviews and everyone, if you guys share and like it, might have us pop up on some recommend. I don't really know how the algorithm works, but I would assume the more videos we have and the more you guys like and share and leave reviews, will pop up on recommendations. So we really appreciate that, and we can't really ask for much more than you guys, sharing as much as
Mhm.
you can and tuning in and subscribing. Those are the most important things. But yeah, really appreciate the feedback. Give us any. We're not afraid of any harsh feedback either. Just for ways to improve. Just give us whatever feedback. It helps. Something's better than nothing. So yeah, really appreciate that.
Yeah, so that's I know what you did last summer. We announced it on our last episode, but next week we will be covering, in honor of the new Insidious movie. We're doing the first Insidious movie, so we're covering Insidious, released in what year, Anthony?
It was released in the festivals 2010, but I think it became
2013,
out like wide 2011. So 2011.
2011. Oh wow,
Yeah,
so quite a few years ago. Okay,
yeah.
and my wife is going to be joining us, Jackie. So it's going to be a
Special
special
guest.
guest. Jackie, she spoiler alert, she loves the franchise, so she wanted to be a part of the first Insidious movie, which is awesome. It's going to be our special 30th episode, so that's going to be a big
Yes.
episode as well. And it'll get you ready for the, what is it called? The Red Door?
Yes. Insidious: The Red
The
Door.
Red Door. Awesome.
So that's timed perfectly for that release. And this
Yep.
one's timed perfectly for 4th of July. So happy 4th of July. And I hope you guys are all watching. I know you did last summer over the next
Mm-hmm.
long holiday weekend.
Yep. Until next time, you can find us at neversplituppod on Twitter and Instagram. That's at neversplituppod. Find us on YouTube. Give us a subscribe on YouTube. We'd really appreciate it. We're also on Facebook, and give us a follow on Apple and Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you so much, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.